Good evening. The League of Women Voters of Larimer County would like to welcome you to this forum featuring 7 candidates for the Colorado Legislature, House Districts 52, 53, and 65, and Senate District 14. One of the candidates for Colorado House District 53 was invited and did not choose to participate in the forum. Thanks to the City of Fort Collins for the use of this council chamber and to the staff for technical support. I'm Ann Thompson from the League of Women Voters, and I will serve as your moderator for the evening. The forum will be broadcast on FCTV Channel 14, Connection Channel 14, and live streamed on fcgov.com/FCTV with video on demand. A recording of the forum will be available in a few days on the city's channels and website. Links to the recording for on-demand viewing will also be posted on the Larimer County League's website, which is lwv-larimercounty.org, and on the United States League's voter information website, which is vote411.org. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. We do take positions on issues after our organization has studied a particular issue and arrived at a consensus. I want to emphasize the fact that we are nonpartisan and do not support any party or candidate. The candidates will answer questions solicited from the public and from League members. As you came in, you were given the opportunity to write questions on cards. League ushers will collect these during the evening if you hold them up or pass them to the aisle. League workers will sort questions to avoid redundancies. I will rotate the order in which the candidates for each office are asked to respond to each question so that no one candidate is first or last in responses, and I will repeat the question as needed. Except for 90-second introductions, each candidate will have 60 seconds or 1 minute for a response, unless I indicate otherwise. In the interest of the timing of this forum, that's necessary. Our timekeeper is Jory Kramer. As moderator, I will read the questions to the candidates and enforce time limits. Out of respect for other members of the audience and the candidates, please silence all cell phones. We ask that the audience not applaud to express support or opposition for any candidate or their positions on an issue. Due to time constraints, not all questions may be asked. We do invite you to stay afterwards if you wish to ask questions of the candidates that may not have been read because of the limited time of the forum. First, our candidates for positions in the Colorado Legislature will introduce themselves. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to make opening remarks. We'll start with you, Kathy.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for taking the time to come tonight. We really appreciate your engagement, and I know it's been a long week of forums and debates, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for putting this together. My name is Kathy Kipp. I am currently the state representative for House District 52, where I have served for the last 6 years in the state legislature. Before that, I served on the local Poudre School District Board of Education for 7 years, so I've been around for a little while. Because of all of my previous experience on the Board of Education, why I really ran initially was to try and make sure that we properly fund our public schools in Colorado, and we're finally making some progress on that. Currently in the House, I serve on the Finance Committee, and I am chair of the Energy and Environment Committee. I've actually bounced around a little bit, so I've had a lot of experience on a variety of different committees. I also serve on the interim committees of the Sales and Use Tax Simplification Task Force, which after many years I can finally say quickly. But our sales taxes are overly complicated, so we are working on trying to make those simpler. And I also serve on the Pension Review Commission because in Colorado, we want to make sure that we fulfill our promises to all of our state employees. And about 1 in 10 Coloradans rely on PARA. But I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight and really appreciate you all being here and the League of Women Voters for pulling us together.
Thank you, Kathy. Phoebe.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for putting this together for this opportunity to talk with everybody. I'm Phoebe McWilliams. I'm running for Senate District 14. I'm a Fort Collins native. I have 2 grown children. I was a police officer's wife for 20 years. We grew up through the ranks together. While I was able to be a stay-at-home mom, I was a preschool teach mom, homeroom mother, and a sports mom. I also founded and was president of a nonprofit 501c3 working to improve the quality and care of life for nursing home residents. In order to prove my credibility, I had to learn the federal and state and regulations and Medicaid rules. I advocated on a one-to-one basis, and I also presented consumer voices before local, state, and federal legislative and regulatory agencies. I hope to provide that experience as I run for Senate District 14. And I'm running because things have gone awry as far as I'm concerned. Things have happened at the legislature that no longer represent my values, which are faith, family, and freedom. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve.
Hi, I'm Steve Urash. I'm a candidate for House District 52 with the new Colorado Center Party, and I want to be the voice for the moderate majority. I have served for 9 years on the Larimer County Board of Health and 3 years on the Fort Collins Electric Board because public service is important to me. Both major parties are dominated by their extreme elements. This is due to the assembly and primary process, which makes it very difficult for moderate candidates to get on the ballot. I am supporting Proposition 131, which is the ranked choice initiative, ranked choice voting, and open primary system. I think it would be very important to have this new system of voting because more choice is more voice, and it will benefit third-party candidates and moderate candidates by eliminating the fear of the wasted vote. It gives you more freedom to vote for whoever you really want and allows you to do a backup vote for other candidates. Again, I would like to be the voice for the moderate majority. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Yara.
Hello. First, thank you so much to the League for putting this event together and giving us the chance to exchange ideas. My name is Yara. I am running for House District 52. I'm a tax attorney, a community organizer, and a mom to 3 little boys. I'm a first-generation Iranian American. My parents fled Iran during the revolution and started over here with nothing to their name. It was a struggle growing up, but against the odds, my family was able to claw their way into the middle class. I think that that's a lot harder for immigrant families to accomplish now, and it's a big reason why I'm running, to make sure we all have equal opportunity. I got involved in local politics with paid family leave, making sure every parent can take time off after having a baby or to take care of a sick loved one. We found that that was something that was not possible for most people here in Colorado. And even though it failed at the ballot, failed at the legislature, we were able to get it to pass at the ballot through grassroots organization. I also helped found a nonprofit called Latino Coalition that advocates for people of color at all levels of government. We have done work to make sure vaccines reach our underserved communities and have launched successful voter registration drives. I am passionate about tax policy, public education funding, and affordable health care, and hope to earn your support this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yara. Andy.
Well, thank you and good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Basenecker. I'm the state representative for House District 53. I have had the privilege of serving my community in that capacity since 2021 and really do consider it the honor of a lifetime to be able to work on behalf of Fort Collins at the state legislature. I serve on a number of committees at the state legislature: transportation, housing, and local government. I'm the vice chair of the State Civic, Veterans, and Military Affairs Committee. I'm the vice chair of the Legislative Audit Committee. I serve on the Healthcare Exchange Oversight Committee, the Wildfire Matters Review Committee, and also the Appropriations Committee, and really find that that work grounds me on behalf of our community in important decisions that are happening at the state level. You know, I would say that I am running for office for a variety of reasons, but not the least of which is that I truly believe that Colorado's best days are still ahead of us, and that in spite of the complex problems facing our society and certainly our community, it is important, if not critical, that we do not lose faith in our ability to work together to solve problems. I think you can see my commitment to our community through the legislation that I've championed and passed. I am proud to have worked on the issues of affordable housing, gun violence prevention, protecting reproductive rights and abortion rights for folks in our community, making sure that public education truly stays public, working on affordable health care, and fighting climate change. It will be my honor to continue serving my community, and I certainly am grateful for the opportunity to discuss these issues this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And now, Laura.
Thank you. My name is Lori Garcia Sander, and I'm the candidate for House District 65. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for offering us this opportunity to speak with people about our views, our platforms, and kind of where we're coming from so that educators can make a clear choice when ballots drop at the end of next week. I just retired after 25 years in public education as a teacher and an administrator in school districts in Larimer County, both Thompson and Poudre school districts. And over the past 25 years, I've enjoyed my years working with children and teachers and families. And lately, over the last 6 to 10 years, I've started to see the effects of the decimating policies that have come out of the state capitol. I am looking forward to going to the state capitol and working on behalf of our children, our teachers, our ranchers and farmers, our oil and gas workers, our small business owners, and the hardworking families of House District 65. They need a strong voice there for the minority party to represent the values in House District 65. When I was a teacher and a principal, I worked hard to make a difference and teaching kids how to read, write, do math, and now I want to go to the State House to make a difference, a positive state difference in Colorado state policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Will.
Thank you. Thanks, League. And it's great to see people out being actually engaged in democracy in this process. I'm running as a Democrat in a very safe Republican district, so it'll be the upset of the century if I win, but I thought Lori should have a challenge. And I think it would be nice if our district was represented by someone in the majority for once, to be able to have more of an influence. I think that would be great. My approach to things is to keep an open mind, to not be dogmatic, to listen to all sides, to find the common ground that we all do share, and to find the solutions that work for everybody. I've worked for the last 35 years helping state government agencies all over the country deliver services that save taxpayers money. And as a representative, that would be my goal here, to save you money. I have 5 adult children here in the district. I have a couple little granddaughters here in the light of my life. But I'm keenly aware of the struggles that young people are facing, my kids and their peers, to afford to live here. I have elderly relatives too and friends in the district, and I'm aware of how hard it is to afford health care and housing. Everybody's struggling with affordability. Bottom line for me is I want a Colorado that works for everyone and that isn't dominated by big money interests. Thanks.
Thanks to all of you for those introductions. Now we will move to questions, and you will have 1 minute to respond to these questions. And I think we'll start, let's start with Stephen, please. And this is about goals that you have. What, if any, legislation are you hoping to introduce or to champion if you are elected?
Property issues are very important in the state today. Property taxes and also affordability of housing. And I would definitely like to join the effort started by 2 Democrats to rewrite the construction defects law, which is preventing condos from being built right now. We've built almost no condos. The developers are building apartment buildings, but not condos for sale. And it's because of the construction defects law, which I believe mostly benefits the trial lawyers. They want their cut on any of these defect issues that might be taken to court. So I think, and also local control of land use code. Preserve Fort Collins has been very outspoken. The Democrats have not been listening to what the voters want on control, local control of land use codes. Thank you.
Thank you. Yara, your response, please.
Yeah, so for me, tax policy is always top of mind. Most people don't want to chat with me about it, but it seems to have been a hot topic lately. I do currently serve as deputy assessor for Larimer County, and I think that bringing that local government lens and bringing some tax expertise to the Capitol is very much needed in this time. We recently passed some great tax credits to help our vulnerable community members. I would like to pass legislation to allow that to be paid monthly to the folks who need it the most. We found that that's the most effective way to help our struggling community members make ends meet. I would also like us to get to the point where we can pay out these tax credits without someone having to file a tax return. I know that that is possible, but it's going to take time to build that infrastructure. But for folks who truly are struggling or who have English as a second language, we see that they're not filing tax returns. So that is a great way to be able to reach them. I also am passionate about public education funding and affordable health care for everyone.
Thank you. Andy, let's hear from you on this topic, please.
Great, thank you so much. I would say my legislative record points to, I think, where I'm headed this next legislative session as well, and that is a priority around affordable housing. I've worked diligently to protect our state's largest source of unsubsidized affordable housing by putting rights into statute for mobile home park residents, making sure those folks have clean drinking water, and we need to do more to make sure that those folks have affordability in their communities, while also working on the supply side of our affordable housing issue. We are over 100,000 units short in the state of Colorado, and it is imperative that we build more housing that is affordable for our communities. I would also say that I'm really focused on gun violence prevention, noting that gun violence is the #1 cause of death for youth and children in the United States. And quite frankly, I refuse to recognize a world where we accept that as a reality. We can do more to protect communities and our children from gun violence, and I'm committed to that work.
Thank you. Lori, would you respond to the question, please?
Thank you. Colorado is 41st in the country in affordability, according to U.S. News and World Report earlier this year. We need to cut taxes, regulations, and fees that prohibit the building of affordable housing. We also need to look at more local control to support affordable housing being built. And that includes cutting regulations at the statewide level that allow local governments to do that. Public safety is important. Colorado is also the 3rd most dangerous in the country with violent crimes. And we need to give our public safety officers the tools and recognition that they need to keep our communities safe. Finally, education, of course, being my 3rd priority. We need more local control. We've seen too many regulations come out of the state that should be left to local school districts. We need to bring, if there are statewide mandates coming, we need to have teachers and parents coming to the table. And I didn't see that in the last few years. Valid teacher and parent participation in school regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. And Will, your response, please.
Yeah, I'm also very interested in different kinds of measures that we can put into place to make housing more affordable. And one of the things we've got is a senior homestead tax exemption, so that taxes don't go up for seniors, but that is not permanent and it's not portable in a permanent way. So if someone moves, they kind of lose that. That's temporarily in place now that they wouldn't, but I'd like to see that made permanent. I'd also like to see tax credits that help people not just to move from owning one house to owning another, but to be able to downsize into a rental and still have that sort of incentive there and safety valve there for people. Because not everybody needs to move to another house that they are going to own. They may want to move to a house that they can rent, like a condo or something where things are taken care of, and they should still be able to have that benefit. The other thing, and I don't think most people are aware of this, but we have some of the dirtiest air in the world here. We get ozone alerts all the time. It affects my granddaughter. It affects my mother-in-law. And we have state agencies that aren't really doing things about it, and I would introduce legislation to force them to.
Thank you all. Oh, sorry, I have two more people. Phoebe, your turn, please. If you could respond, please.
I'm very concerned about some things that are taking place in our state. Affordable housing is one of them, and my concern is you can't have affordable housing if you keep taxing people. I don't care if it's at grocery store or if it's property taxes. If you keep taxing people, they can't afford housing, period. The other thing is the gun rights. I support gun rights. In this day and age, we need our right to protect ourselves. Currently, there's legislation that will raise by 6%, which is already 11%, the fees that are charged for purchasing a gun. And not everybody can afford those increases. I also support our police, and I also would like to address legislation to protect our kids, to make sure that they have a safe environment in schools, that I guess I better stop. Thanks.
And finally, Kathy, could you respond, please?
Thank you. There is a lot to care about, so I'm going to try and get through my list. So as I said, I came from the world of education, which means I'm still working to make sure that we adequately fund our public schools. I've also worked a lot on the teacher shortage that we have here in Colorado and plan to continue to do so. Affordable housing is a huge issue. Supply and demand is a big part of it, but we also have to do that growth in a sustainable way, recognizing the limitations of our natural resources such as water. Air and water. Will's right, our air quality in Larimer County here is one of the worst in the entire nation, according to the American Lung Association. We need to continue to work on that and work on issues to mitigate or work on mitigating climate change, because that's a huge issue in our time. Healthcare, affordability, access, including for mental health, substance abuse. And when I say healthcare, I am also talking about access to abortion and to gun violence prevention. Thank you.
Now, thank you all for those responses. We have several questions about health care, so I'm going to give you several questions. First of all, question is, what do you see as the major health care issue in our state, and how would you address this issue? Let's start with Will.
Affordability. And that's both in terms of medical care and hospitals, but also prescription drugs. And, we pay the most in this country for health care per capita of pretty much any nation on earth, but we're not getting that world-class health care. So it's not a good deal for us. And a big part of that is because of big money interests, price gouging from big pharma, price gouging from big insurance companies, and also the costs that small medical practices have to pay to protect themselves legally. So there's a lot of different things that we can do to address, but the biggest problem is healthcare. We also have a lack of access to mental health care, and we see the results of not having good mental health care in all kinds of ways in our communities, whether it's homelessness or gun violence. And we need to beef up what we're doing to be sure people have access to that.
Thank you. Lori, could you respond, please?
Yes, thank you. So I actually agree with my opponent. I believe that the cost of insurance has risen dramatically since Colorado came up with a plan to have our state self-insurance and drive out other insurance companies. It drove out competition, and with that, we have fewer insurance companies and the prices are going up. So definitely the price of insurance, people, when they're struggling to afford to put food on their table and pay the electric and gas and water bills, insurance and medical costs somehow get left behind. We definitely need tort reform. There's a lot to say about how much the lawyers are getting out of all the lawsuits when people can't afford to pay their hospital bills, and so definitely healthcare insurance is a big concern, and tort reform is a second big concern that we need to address. Thank you.
Thank you. Yara, what are your thoughts on this?
I think the primary issue is affordability. I've knocked thousands of doors in House District 52, and I've heard some truly heartbreaking stories. I've talked to a mom whose daughter has cancer, and she spends most of her days arguing with insurance companies to get them to cover the treatment that the doctors say she needs. You really can't put a price on human life, and that is exactly what we have done in the current system that we have. We're allowing insurance companies to get wealthier and wealthier while we cannot afford health care and get sicker. I do support a single payer system. I would like us to study this to make sure that we get it right. I know Rep. Basenecker has brought that bill a few times just to study this system, and big insurance has stood in the way. So I look forward to joining him to get that over the finish line.
Thank you. Steve?
Okay, you did miss Andy, so I hope you'll go back to him at some point. So single payer or Medicare for all would be a huge mistake. It is opposed by the American Medical Association and the Colorado Hospital Association. Denver Health is in major financial problems, and they are asking for additional local tax because of the financial problems they have. Too many Medicare, Medicaid patients and illegal migrants are needing care at Denver Health, and so they need that additional tax money. So putting more burden on them is absolutely not appropriate. And that's what would happen with Medicare for all, because Medicare and Medicaid do not reimburse doctors and hospitals for the full cost of the care provided to patients. The difference is made up for by privately insured patients.
Thank you. Now, Andy, your response, please.
Thank you so much. I think there are numerous challenges to our current healthcare delivery system that the state legislature can really effectively address in upcoming sessions. I think you've seen work in that regard. I would say that affordability is obviously a huge issue for folks, as is access to care. As a primary value for myself, I really don't believe that your zip code should predetermine your ability to access healthcare or the health outcomes that you're able to attain as a result of where you live. It's critically important that we look at bolstering healthcare supports in rural communities as well, making sure that we have career pathways for folks in those communities to be able to work and then ultimately provide care for folks in those communities. I've passed a number of bills that address some of these issues, including a bill that makes sure that if your insurer goes out of business in the state of Colorado, you don't have to pay your new insurer twice for a deductible you've already paid. I think there are common sense ways that we can look at these things. And I also would say, as a value, we cannot be afraid of looking at new ideas, including studying single-payer healthcare delivery models, because ultimately we pay the most for health insurance with the poorest health outcomes. It is responsible to look at new ideas.
Thank you. Kathy, your thoughts.
Thank you. I think, we're going to sort of make this a clean sweep and say affordability and access are clearly the biggest challenges we have here in Colorado. There are a lot of reasons that several folks have already mentioned. I will mention a few things that we have done in the state to try and bring down costs. Now, that doesn't mean that the costs are getting lower. That means that they are increasing less than they otherwise would have. So, it makes it hard to make that argument sometimes. But my first year in the legislature in 2019, we passed a reinsurance program, which basically takes some of the highest cost insurance people who would cost the most to insure off of the market. The Colorado option was done a few years ago and it was alluded to, but again, that has actually been successful and kept some of the prices down as much as possible. Telehealth is another thing that we have done to try and make sure that more people have that access to care and keeping the cost down as well. There's a lot more we can do, but I see I'm about out of time. Let's mention it. Okay, I'll be quiet then.
And Phoebe, your thoughts on this?
Hi, I'm going to go to a different direction to some degree. I'm going to talk about the people that have to apply for and certify for Medicaid. There are not enough doctors that are on the Medicaid program, and that limits the accessibility of those Medicaid recipients to get health care. Another thing that I'd like for people to take a look at is what exactly does Medicaid pay for? You would be surprised that when Medicaid dollars are cut, it's the patients themselves that are cut and they're decertified. Medicaid pays for attorney fees when nursing homes are found to be non-compliant or at fault in level of care. It also pays for administrative or director of nurses fees. Those fees are not explained. So we need to look at the program itself. We need to make some changes there in order to provide access to Medicaid recipients' health care.
Thank you all for responses to that question. Another question about healthcare has to do with behavioral health. And Yara, let's start with you. What ideas do you have for increasing funding and access to behavioral health services in the state of Colorado?
Thank you for that question. It's a very important one in our times as we're seeing pretty awful mental health outcomes across Colorado, and it is truly a crisis in our youth currently. I think that a single payer system can encompass mental health care. And I think that the biggest issue that I'm hearing is folks struggling to pay for mental health care and to have access to it. So we do need to increase providers. We need to increase providers in rural areas, and we need to give the funding necessary for us to have these services. I'm really encouraged by the Larimer County Behavioral Health Center, but it filled up very quickly. So it shows that there is a big need in our community. I think it's the state's role to give funding to allow us to expand this care.
Thank you. Steve?
So I did serve on the Larimer County Board of Health for 9 years, and we talked about mental health quite a bit. And I believe we did add a Larimer County tax to help with behavioral health. That was fought for quite a few years. However, I have heard that Summit Stone, which is a mental health provider in the area, had to lay off some of its employees because they had to open up to Medicaid, I believe. Someone might want to fact check me on that, but I'm definitely concerned about the loss of those employees, and I don't think that Medicare for all or single payer is going to fix the problem. You have to be able to manage the number of patients and the resources that you have. So sure, behavioral health is very important. My 3 kids, 2 of them definitely have need for some of those services occasionally. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's go now to Phoebe.
Could you repeat the question, please?
I'm happy to. What ideas do you have for increasing funding and access to behavioral health services in the state of Colorado?
Well, maybe we could cut some services that aren't providing what they need to provide and put it towards mental health care. We've got schools that are now wanting to increase our taxes when our kids aren't even meeting grade level expectations. We need to take a look at what our tax money is paying for. We also need to hire people that are definitely trained in the field of behavioral health. Just because they say they're a social worker doesn't mean that they know what a mental health need is. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kathy, your thoughts?
Thank you. Yeah, behavioral health, it's a really huge issue. I'm really proud of what Larimer County did in approving a sales tax in order to help fund the Longview facility, which a lot of people are making use of. It has been enormously successful here in our community, and I think other communities could be well served to do the same thing. We do always have to worry about the number of providers in our community and throughout the state, because mental health providers of substance abuse, behavioral health can be in short supply. I do want to mention the iMatter program, which is a really great program that we have funded through the state for many years now, really since the pandemic, where youth can go and have 6 free online visits, basically to get them started along the path of getting the help that they need. And maybe that's all they need, but if they need more help, they can get referred. My first year in the legislature, we did pass a mental health equity bill to make sure that mental health is treated in parity with physical health, and we need to continue making sure that's being implemented and followed.
Thank you. Andy, your thoughts, please.
Thank you. It's a really important question. I would say that one of the things that I'm immensely proud of is how the state of Colorado utilized and prioritized mental and behavioral health in figuring out how to invest the federal relief dollars we received during the pandemic into communities. And we realized pretty quickly early on that communities had existing and certainly exacerbated mental and behavioral health needs due to the pandemic, and this has been continued to this day. I think the Longview Mental and Behavioral Health Center serves as a model that the rest of the state really should be proud of in terms of how that project came about, how it continues to dismantle stigma around receiving care for mental and behavioral health, and quite frankly, how it's going to continue providing care for folks even on an outpatient basis. I do think that one of the things we really need to look at as well is how this has impacted our schools and our children, specifically with an interest in increasing our mental and behavioral health professionals in schools, school counselors, school psychologists, to make sure that the folks who see children day in and day out can support them to the best of their ability.
Thank you. Laurie?
Thank you. So the question was how to increase funding and access to behavioral health services. So first of all, increasing funding, like Phoebe mentioned, we're going to need to look at the state budget. The state budget is finite. The way I manage my school budgets was just like how I manage my home budget. There's finite dollars, and when you stretch them so far, you've got to figure out what else to cut. That said, mental health is a really important, critical need. Having worked in schools for the last 25 years, I've seen an increasing need in behavioral health services, especially for young children over the last 10 years. And we're seeing that go all the way up through high school and college. So we do need to increase the number of mental health providers in schools to address critical needs. But I'm also going to go to education. We need to educate the public and educate parents on what services there are for them to access, because I don't believe that there's been enough education for the public and parents at large about the services that they can access that are already in place. Thank you.
Thank you. And Will?
It's correct that we have to look at the whole budget and prioritize mental health care spending in some ways over other things because it's important. It's important that we make sure that mental health care providers are available in the schools all over the state, not just in the big school districts, but also in the rural, smaller school districts so that, like Andy said, your zip code doesn't dictate what you have access to. It should be a floor statewide. The other thing is, in my work over the decades with other states all over the United States, states are innovating in different ways on this and so many other programs. And so looking into how does another state address this in a good way, in an effective way, how does another state save money on this that we could adopt here in Colorado? That's something that we can do not just in mental health care, but all across programs in Colorado.
Thank you. Thank you all for those responses. I'm going to do what's called a quick round. Did everybody get a chance to respond? Yes. Okay. I'm going to do what's called a quick round, something that has come up a couple of times. And let's see, we'll start with you, Will. Listen carefully to the question. The past 2 years, legislation was introduced at the state level proposing the analysis of a statewide universal single-payer healthcare system specific to Colorado. If introduced this year, could your support be expected?
Is this just a yes or no question?
Yes, it is. Agree or disagree, whichever.
Absolutely. Yeah, studying that, absolutely.
Lori,
Disagree.
Andy,
It's my bill, so I'll say agree.
good plan.
Yes,
Yara?
of course, I agree.
Steve,
No.
Phoebe,
No.
and Kathy.
Yes.
All right, thank you all for that. One more question about health, and this has to do with women's health. And this time I'll start with Andy. What would you do to protect women's reproductive rights, and would you be supportive of Amendment 79?
And this is a minute, or is this a?
You can talk about this one
Thank
for
you
a
very
minute.
much. So I was proud to be on the House floor when we codified Roe v. Wade here in the state of Colorado in anticipation of it being overturned by the Supreme Court. That was a 24-hour plus fight where we heard story after story about how access to reproductive health care and abortion care is not only an equity issue for communities, but it is a matter of life and death for folks who need medical care in urgent moments. I am also a parent of 3 children, and I am someone who has dealt with this issue through my spouse just directly. And I can say the ability to access health care, reproductive health care when you need it is, again, a matter of life and death. And what we've seen in other states, unfortunately, is folks going septic or, unfortunately, dying because of lacks of access to health care and reproductive health care. I am deeply supportive of the continued efforts to expand access to reproductive health care and abortion care. I've endorsed Amendment 79, and I will continue to fight alongside communities for access to important services that save lives.
Thank you. Let's go to Kathy for the next response, please.
Thank you. I would agree with my colleague, Andy, because we were both on the House floor together for over 24 hours and just straight getting that bill across the line. Abortion care is health care. Abortion care is health care. It is critically important. It saves lives. It is something that is fundamental, and we as women thought we had access to it for 50 years nearly until the Supreme Court overturned it. So Amendment 79 will do what we couldn't do in the legislature. In the legislature, we put it into statute. The Constitution is where we can put the abortion amendment to make sure, enshrine it into the Constitution, and make sure people have access. That makes it a lot more certain that should there be a change in the legislature or change in values, that it's a lot tougher to get rid of, because we need to make sure that we protect this right.
Thank you. And Phoebe, your response.
Well, I don't support Amendment 79. My concern about abortion is that we, as a society, do not put enough efforts in informing women what happens to them, their bodies, their emotional status when they do have an abortion. Women do not know the entire process of what happens to the preborn during abortion, what happens using the methods that they use. And I think if more people knew that, more women would not seek abortion. We also need to work on providing options. Like if a woman wants to carry her baby, provide, right now we have the WIC program that helps women keep their children and pay for all the expenses. But we need to let the people know that there are facilities out there to provide housing for them, health for the baby, all that kind of stuff, and that's not done accurately. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen.
So the Center Party supports women's reproductive rights, and I do personally as well support women's reproductive rights. So I absolutely support what Andy and Kathy have said about women's reproductive rights. The women who are pregnant don't necessarily want to get an abortion. They're not going to choose a late term abortion if they want to keep the baby. But obviously, there are complications, there are potential defects with a fetus. How could I, as a legislator, possibly try to figure out what the exceptions should or should not be in these cases? It's up to the woman, the doctor, her priest and religion to decide what's right and wrong. So I absolutely support women's reproductive rights, and I also support the proposition. And I thought the need for the proposition also included the rights for state workers to have access from their health benefits to abortion and reproductive services, because we're not supposed to be funding abortions with state money, but I think exception needs to be made for state workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori, your response, please.
Thank you. Can you please read the question again?
What will you do to protect women's reproductive rights? Are you supportive of Amendment 79?
So I believe that women should have the right to their personal body autonomy. I also believe in less government, and I don't like the idea of adding more to our Constitution for many of the things that are coming up on the ballot this fall. I believe that Amendment 79 would pave the way for taxpayer funding to go to abortions, and I'm against taxpayer-funded abortions.
Thank you. Let's see here. You haven't responded yet.
Yeah, I absolutely support a person's right to make decisions about their body and their health care, and that is really what this comes down to. It's not the government's job to step in and make those decisions, and we've seen what happens. I've heard the stories around the country of women bleeding out because doctors don't know if they can treat them until they are in a life-threatening situation. And these are truly heartbreaking situations, so I will always stand strong on abortion rights for everybody. And I do support Amendment 79 as well. I do think it could lead to folks on Medicaid having this as a covered service, and I do support that. People on Medicaid right now do not have access to reproductive health care that is covered, and these are individuals who oftentimes are some of our most vulnerable community members. So I do support Amendment 79, and I'll always stand firm on a woman's right to choose.
Thank you. And Will?
Yeah, the idea that the government should be able to have control over what my daughters do with their bodies offends me greatly. And I would, if elected, definitely I support Amendment 79 and legislation that would keep that freedom for women to control their own bodies. The idea that some old rich white guys in Washington who have a history of abusing women can come and dictate what happens with women in the country with their bodies is abhorrent to me.
Thank you all for that response, those responses. Now we're going to move to a different topic. We're going to talk a little bit more about the environment, and starting off with a question about air quality. These things sometimes are alluded to before, but we'd like to give you an opportunity for greater detail. And we'll start with you, Phoebe. Northern Colorado has not met the EPA's ozone reduction requirements. What are your ideas for improving air quality in the region?
Well, to begin with, I approve and I seek quality air for all of us to breathe. I'm not sure that involving the government in monitoring the ozone layer and all that kind of stuff is helpful. I'm concerned because the EPA, there's all kinds of different changes, and it's very hard for the industry to keep up with that. Just as citizens, we need to be more involved as to what kind of decisions and rules making the EPA is doing for our own benefit. I believe in clean air, clean water, but but I think the government and overregulation is not helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy, your response, please.
Thank you. So, according to the American Lung Association, Fort Collins has the 16th worst levels of ozone in the entire country. Along the Northern Front Range, we have hit severe levels of attainment. Our air is not safe to breathe. We have children that are developing asthma. We have adults that are having chronic health conditions because of the quality of our air. So yes, we do need to address it. We have been working on this issue, frankly, for my entire time in the legislature, and we need to continue to do better. One of the ideas I've heard expressed recently is that what we should do is we should be measuring the precursors to ozone so that we can make sure that we are aware when the ozone comes up. We also have to make sure that we're addressing greenhouse gas emissions, which lead to climate. And along with those, we have to work on things like methane and other pollutants. So yes, we need to work on all of that.
Thank you. Lori, what is your response to this?
Thank you. So you're asking how to improve our air quality? Is that
Ideas for
Okay.
improving
ideas
air
for
quality
improving
in the
air
region.
quality? So I was just reading an article a couple of days ago about how, yes, Front Range has some of the worst ozone rates. However, I also read in the same article that even if we were to completely kill oil and gas off, our ozone would still be in the unacceptable rates of EPA for the parts per million. And that has a lot to do with our geography, with wildfires, with just general air passing through from pollution from the West Coast, from overseas. It's a lot to do with our geography. We sit in a bowl right here on the Front Range. Air comes over the mountains and it sits here. And if you know what the rain shadow is, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We need to look at the data. We need to look at the research and really figure out how to stop the goalposts from moving, keep the expectations right now where they are, and see if the mitigation factors that have been put in place are actually working.
Thank you. And Will, what are your thoughts?
It's an issue near and dear to me. I've worked on it for 30 years here in northern Colorado. And the idea that if we do something about it, that it's not going to fix it, isn't a reason to not do something about it that will make it better. And if we do reduce emissions from oil and gas, we will make it better. And so we should do that. It doesn't mean we have to shut down the oil and gas industry. It doesn't mean we put a lot of people out of work. When we transition out of oil and gas, which is continuing to be more and more expensive as other forms of energy get cheaper, we need that transition to be just and one that enables people to move into other jobs that are also good paying. You know, I was at the Harvest Festival in Windsor, and Vestas was there hiring 1,000 people to build wind turbines to power our not just Colorado, but our country. And those kinds of things are things that we should be doing to improve our air quality.
Thank you. Let's jump to Stephen, please.
So I have a degree in physics, and I've been an engineer during my career in the chip industry. And on the Board of Health, we had multiple presentations on the air quality. And Lori is quite correct that a lot of the ozone problem we have is background, is not actually generated by our industry or the cars. Obviously, they contribute, and we should do something about that. But the background amounts are very significant. We don't have enough wind to clear it out. And the volatile organic compounds, basically the tree sap from the forest combine with the sunlight to create the ozone. We're not going to chop the forests down to fix that problem. So it's very complex. We have to look at the data. California has tried solving these kinds of problems by, if your license plate on your car ends in an odd number, you can drive today. If it's an even number, you can drive tomorrow. I'm not in favor of that kind of solution.
Thank you. Yara, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's an important one. As has been mentioned, we live in a non-attainment area here. Look, there's no center position when it comes to the climate and mitigating the impact of climate change. You either believe what the what the climate scientists are saying, and that this is an existential threat that will lead to us not having a livable planet, or you don't believe that data that all the climate scientists have come to an agreement on. The impacts are already here, and it is hitting our communities of color and our low income communities the hardest, and that is by design. It is through the way we have built land use policy in this state. I would support holding our top polluters accountable. I think that we absolutely have to move forward with that, and to move forward with the transition to clean energy while ensuring that no workers are left behind.
Thank you. Andy, your response.
Thank you for the question. Like so many families, this is not an academic exercise for mine. Two of my three children, in fact, the two who were born here in Colorado, have childhood asthma, and that is obviously exacerbated by, if not caused by, our air quality here in northern Colorado. I think like so many families, it is important that we fix this so that we can actually enjoy the beautiful state we live in safely on just about every day we could. You know, I think one of the issues that hasn't been mentioned here is the ability to move vehicles off the road should a consumer choose to do so. Reducing vehicle miles traveled looks like passing Front Range Passenger Rail, which I passed a bill last year, which will bring it to Fort Collins by 2029. It also looks like building housing in the right places so that folks aren't taking a single car to get back and forth from their job. I think these are easy things that we can do to really move the needle on this. But I also think it looks like holding industries that are chronic polluters accountable, making sure that the fine and fee structure at the state is not simply something that can be incorporated into the cost of doing business, but results in meaningful action on behalf of communities impacted by climate change.
Thanks to all of you for responses to that question. And now we're going to move to water and equity, justice in water. And I'd like to start with Lori on this question. Please share your thoughts on giving greater protection to Indigenous peoples' water rights, particularly as they relate to the Colorado River.
So this is something I've just started learning about in the last couple of years, and I think it's bigger than just Colorado. Water law is so huge, and I grew up in Weld County where we were used to the saying, whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting. Water is more precious than gold, and our native indigenous tribes have rights to the Colorado water. I don't know enough about it to make an educated comment about it, but I do know that we need to recognize their rights to the water and figure out how do we support them, but also support the growing needs along the Front Range and Western Slope in Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you. Will, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, can you say the question again? Sorry.
Yes. The question is, please share your thoughts on giving greater protection to Indigenous peoples' water rights, particularly as they relate to the Colorado River.
Oh, yeah. I support Indigenous people's water rights unequivocally. Water is a problem here in more ways than one. You know, the Poudre River runs dry through Fort Collins now because we take so much out of it that there isn't much left. And it's not healthy for the river. We use a lot more water per capita here in Colorado than people use in drier places like Arizona. And so the data that we see in Arizona tells us we could actually use water more efficiently here if we adopted some of the methods that are used in Arizona or in other drier places. And so we should be doing that. We should be incentivizing more efficient use of water in agriculture. We want to protect our family farms and protect water so that those farms can continue and so that our business can continue and so that our children and grandchildren can enjoy the same water resources that we've been blessed to enjoy.
Thank you. Kathy.
Thank you. No, I agree. I fully support the water rights of Indigenous peoples, but I also recognize that we have huge water challenges here in Colorado. When I first moved to Colorado, I ran into a city council person at the time. I don't know who it was, so don't ask, who told me, I asked, why don't we have water meters? And he said, well, we don't have water meters here because it's just cheaper to go buy water. But that is not the situation we find ourselves in anymore. Water is a scarce and valuable resource, and we need to do everything we can to use it efficiently in our communities. And there's a lot, as was mentioned, that we can do, and we can look to drier places in our country where they are having water reuse, using water more efficiently, better landscaping. There's all kinds of things we can do within our community and within our state to make sure that we are using our resources most efficiently, so that we are able to make sure that the people who have the rights to the water, such as the Indigenous tribes, are finally given their due.
Thank you. Phoebe?
I would support the the Native Americans having the rights to water. I have been to the reservations, and the quality of life is like a third world nation right here in our country. If getting them the water rights would be beneficial to them, more power to them. They have had to fight for their rights from the beginning of time, and they're just now beginning to get together after many, many years. They have people in their tribe that are now attorneys that can fight for their rights. That has not been a possibility in the past. And I'm really proud of my Native American heritage for being able to do that. It's just been astounding to see that we have to purchase clothes from Goodwill by the pound to ship up to the reservations in Wyoming and Montana. The living conditions are abominable. They have houses that are built by the government, but there's no plumbing that goes to those houses. Something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy, please.
Thank you for the question. Yes, absolutely support the rights of our tribal nations in regard to their water rights. I think it also comes back to a fundamental question and a priority of recognizing the sovereignty of those tribal nations and understanding the history that has placed the conversation in front of us. And I think we would do well to both recognize that history of oppression and also the obligation we have as a society to ensure that folks have access to clean water and have the rights that they are due. I've worked on this issue a little bit. A couple years back, passed a bill related to produced water and reducing the usage of fresh water in oil and gas operations. We engaged heavily with our tribal nations in passing that bill because they had a vested interest due to activity on their lands to be able to maintain existing oil and gas operations. And it felt very right to us to be able to allow them access to resources should they desire them, and at the same time recognize their sovereignty and let the operations continue as they would like to see them. And so I think that is part of it as well, recognizing the sovereignty as well as empowering folks.
Thank you. Yara?
I will say I'm very encouraged by the fact that I am hearing more and more people be engaged on this issue of water in general, and knocked many doors in this district, and was a little surprised that even younger folks, high school students, are asking me questions about water. So I think it's great that people are being engaged on this. To answer your question, I do support giving water rights to our Indigenous communities, and it is a finite resource. So I support efforts that the state has invested into as far as water conservation. There is some encouraging research around the country in water recycling, and I would support funding that research. And of course, making sure that everybody has clean water. That is something that is not a reality for everybody in Fort Collins or in Colorado. And I'm going to venture to guess it's not the folks who have the ability to show up to a forum like this who are impacted. It's our lower income folks, it's folks in mobile home communities. I'm very encouraged by work that Representative Basenecker has done to address that, and look forward to joining him on that.
Thank you. Steve?
I'm not familiar with the Indigenous tribes having any special or different needs for the water rights. I certainly support whatever current water rights they have now, and I'd certainly be more than interested in learning more about what their needs are, which I'm certainly they have some needs. Nobody's talked about the growth in our population, which is driven by immigration. I think if we want to survive with the amount of water that we have, we need to reduce immigration so that we can control the population growth. Increases in density being forced on us is not appropriate. We want to preserve our local character of neighborhoods. We bought our homes expecting that the neighborhood character would remain the same, and I think we need to respect that. So all of these land use code changes that have been suggested do not take account of the water needed for these kind of growth activities.
Thank you all for responding to that question. Here's a more general question about land use, and it has to do with the balance of three different aspects of Colorado as this person sees it. And we'll start with Andy. How would you balance the interests of farmers and ranchers, oil and gas industries, and northern Colorado urban and rural communities?
Thank you for the question. Several years ago, I had the privilege of passing a bill through the state legislature, which was ultimately vetoed by Governor Polis. But the primary thrust of that bill was simply this, that our farmland and agricultural land is not something that should be considered urban blight. And unfortunately, what we saw happening was that developers were declaring farmland to be blight and utilizing an urban renewal authority to be able to reap the tax benefit as a result of that declaration. Quite frankly, I think that is absolutely antithetical to where we need to go as a state. I come from a family of sugar beet farmers and soybean farmers, and we need to do more to protect our agricultural land to ensure that our farmers, and especially our family farmers, I will say, really do have the ability to enter into that profession, which is a tough one, and it is full of risk. And at the same time, it provides healthy food to our communities and puts it on our table. And I think it's really important that we protect our agricultural land as a result.
Thank you. Let's move to Yara.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Representative Basenecker. I think that it's important to protect our agricultural land, protect our open spaces, and balance these interests. And at the same time, we do need to make sure that people do have housing and that folks who want to live here are able to live here. I do support building more affordable housing and ensuring that it is truly affordable housing. I would like to see us partner with nonprofit builders to make sure it is built at a lower price point. And I think what makes Fort Collins great is that we're a welcoming, inclusive place where our immigrant community can be welcome, where our farmers can be welcome, and where we celebrate that diversity. And so I think it is a fine balance, and I look forward to working with all groups to make sure we achieve that.
Thank you. And Steve.
I celebrate our diversity too. But immigration is not about diversity. Immigration is about the numbers of people coming into our country and our state, and we need to reduce our growth so that we can protect the land that we have, both urban and rural and agricultural. And I agree with Andy that the use of tax increment financing to give tax benefits to the developers is wrong. I think growth needs to pay for itself and not be funded by existing residents. And that's why we need to have local control of the land use code and not allow the state legislature to run roughshod with a one-size-fits-all policy. Every community is very different and special, and it's the local government where the citizens can actually participate in the decisions to decide what should be built and where.
Thank you. And Phoebe.
I agree with Steve. I too come from a family of farmers and ranchers. I think they'd roll over in their graves now. My concern is seeing the number of solar panels covering over our farm and ranch land, and our farm and ranch land being sold to foreigners like China. That has got to stop. We're going to lose our country if you don't know it by now. That's our food supply. And when we have farmers and ranchers shutting down and moving or selling, or we have our own government going after family ranches that have been in existence for generations and telling them they no longer can live there, that's ridiculous. We need to stand up and fight for what's right. And right now, it's not working in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Phoebe. Kathy, your response, please.
Thank you. And I think, really wherever we have water use, we need to make sure that we're doing it efficiently. I believe our agriculture sector takes up about 85% of our available water right now, which, that's fine. We need to eat. We need to have food. We need to have those things grown. But there are things we can do to make even that more efficient. We can use regenerative agriculture. If there are solar panels on the ground, sometimes they're used to shade crops and to retain water in the soil. There are ways that we can have these things work together, and they also create renewable energies on ranch land and farmland can create income for a rather more challenging industry where you have challenges. And as I mentioned before, in our urban areas, we can do more to follow places like, Las Vegas or Arizona or wherever they are having much more efficient usages of water. Thank you.
Thank you. Will, your turn.
Yeah, our District 65 is home to a lot of agricultural land and a lot of great innovation in the agriculture industry, if you will. So I'm a big proponent and supporter of protecting, keeping agricultural land in use as agricultural land. Balancing that with urban sprawl, sprawl costs us all, and that's scientifically, the data just shows us that when we spread out, everything gets more expensive for everybody, and that kind of growth never pays for itself, and we end up paying higher taxes and having lower services. So protecting agricultural land and open space is valuable, not only because it's good crops, but also the open space and the vistas that are there and the wildlife that's protected on that. So we always want to take care of that. When it comes to oil and gas, one of the things people don't know is that every time you frack for oil, you use millions of gallons, and every one of those gallons that goes into the ground comes out radioactive. It can't be returned to the water cycle. It just has to be injected into an injection well, and that's something that we should stop. We should stop wasting water in that way and taking it away from agriculture.
Thank you. And Lori?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yes. I have to find it here. Just a second. How would you balance the interests of farmers and ranchers, oil and gas industries, and northern Colorado urban and rural communities?
So I'll go back to local government. I think the state has too much overreach into local government. This should be a county and local municipality thing to regulate, if it's regulated at all. Having grown up in Weld County in rural areas, now living in a rural area and traveling frequently throughout HD 65, I know there's a ton of farm and ranch land. We also have oil and gas wells that are important to our economy. What I know is that the farmer behind us is also ready to sell his property. There's farmers all around who can't afford to do business anymore in Colorado. The cost of being a farmer or a rancher is too expensive. So they're selling out and creating their own retirement income. We can't fault them for selling their private property. And often that goes to developers that are in the business of creating more housing. More housing is going to increase the supply, which will drive down costs. So I think this all goes back to local government control, not a state decision. Thank you.
Thank you all for your responses. Several of you mentioned housing, so I have a couple of more direct questions specifically about housing. And Yara, we'll start with you on this question. Affordable housing is a concern for people living in or looking to live here in Colorado. What will you do to help ensure that people can live, work, and retire, specifically in your district that you serve and in the larger state of Colorado?
Okay. big problem for 1 minute, but this is a problem of statewide concern, and of course Fort Collins is not immune to that. It has become such an issue that I think we need to do everything we can to address it. I have 5 points, and I'll try to get through them here on how I think we can address this problem. One is that when we talk about affordable housing, I think homelessness is not part of the conversation as often as it should be. That homelessness is a policy choice, and that folks who are experiencing homelessness often were renters who then were unable to afford the rising costs of rent. I do support eviction protections that recently passed at the Capitol, and I have actually seen them in practice keep people housed. I support getting money in the hands of people who need it the most and using my tax policy expertise to make that happen. I do think we need to build more affordable housing, and I think increasing public transportation also helps reduce housing costs. And I have heard some exclusionary language about housing and who is in our communities. Our immigrant communities and folks who are contributing to our economy make our communities a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy, let's go to you.
Thank you for the question. I think there's a number of things that we need to continue working on at the state level. And I would point out that the state land use code bills that we have passed acknowledge readily that affordable housing is a mixture of statewide and local concern, because what we see happening in a local jurisdiction never happens in a silo. It will always impact surrounding jurisdictions in terms of cost and availability of housing. And that is where I think the state has a vested interest to make sure that communities across our state remain affordable or can be affordable for folks. So I think it looks like protecting and preserving our existing affordable housing. And what I mean by that is public dollars that have been invested in housing, the public should have the first swing at maintaining that as affordable housing, since their tax dollars have made an impact on making that reality for folks. I also think it looks like gentle density in communities and not simply urban sprawl. I think we need to look at minimum lot size reform and also the ability to build smaller footprint homes that can serve as starter home for folks and fee simple ownership inside of the ADU space. It's one thing to rent, it is the American dream to own and buy a home.
Thank you. Stephen.
So I addressed some of this in my opening statement, that the construction defects law is what's preventing condos from being built, which is really a person's first starter home. So we need to fix that. The affordable housing, I attended the City of Fort Collins Housing Summit last week. It was very informative. The city is doing a lot to try to attain affordable housing for those who need it, but it really should be a partnership with restaurants or other industries that employ those kinds of people, such as the mountain communities have their resorts. They have control over their own housing for those employees. We can do similar kinds of things to make sure there is at least a minimum percentage of affordable housing. So I'm in favor of those kinds of things, the public-private partnerships, but you can't force developers to build.
Thank you. Let's move to Lori, please, for your response.
Oh, I never turned off my microphone, sorry. So I think that one of the most important things we need to do is address the inflation issues that make Colorado unaffordable. We need to address property tax relief for homeowners. That's a priority. We need to address the insurance that it takes to insure a home. The rates are going up because of a lot of reasons, including wildfires and environmental concerns, but also there's insurance companies that are leaving the state, which means that we have less competition and they can charge more. We also need to look at the environmental mandates for building homes. I know in Boulder and Larimer County, we've seen a lot of increases in environmental mandates that make the cost of building prohibitive for developers to build more affordable housing. So I also agree we need to fix the construction defects law. That would go a long way in builders being able to build more condos and apartments and small family homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Will.
Yeah, it's a complex problem to solve. And no easy fixes. You know, one of the things about Colorado is a lot of people own property and houses here who don't live in Colorado. And those folks having the same kind of tax breaks or whatever that local Coloradoans have, I think we should address that and make it, you know, have something that favors folks who live here over folks who don't. I know it's a big problem out in the mountain communities, but it's a problem here too. Regulations, one size fits all kinds of regulations, whether that's minimum parking requirements or minimum lot sizes or maximum this or minimum that are one size fits all kind of regulations handed down from the state. I don't think those are a good idea, even locally either. You know, enabling local governments to tailor things to the needs of the local community is important, but it is a statewide concern and it does spill over, and so the state does have to take a role.
Thank you. Phoebe?
As a native of Fort Collins, I've seen some things that I don't like. I have been before the city council's planning and zoning board and have been told, lady, we don't care what you have to say. We're going to do what the city council says. And right now they're telling us to build, build, build. And what they're doing is building without plans for infrastructure. They're not making plans for the increase in traffic. And so I just don't like what they're doing. And tell me, what is affordable? What is affordable? All people have different levels of income. So what is affordable? You know, with property taxes going up, insurance rates going up, people can't afford it. You know, we just got to get some common sense going here. This is just ridiculous. Thank you. I don't like to see the destruction of my city that I grew up in. It was such a fine, wonderful city, and it's being changed, and it's abhorrent to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy?
Thank you for the question. I think affordable housing is one of the top issues I hear about when I go and talk to people at doors. It's something that's really incredibly important to our community. And I will agree with my colleague that it is a matter of both statewide concern and a matter of local control. The state sets the baseline, right? And then local governments can do what they want on top of that baseline. It happens not just in this area, but in so many others. There are more land use things we can do, but we've also done a lot of things as a state. We passed Proposition 123 a couple years ago, which is allowing us to invest more dollars in affordable housing. You can continue to talk about construction defects, but frankly, neither of the bills that went through the session last year were the right answer, because you do need to balance the rights of homeowners who have sometimes lost tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars in value when their defects in their property weren't addressed. So you need a proper balance to achieve that.
Thank you all for your responses on that question. One more about affordable housing that is quite specific. And we'll start with Lori on this question. What are the successes and problems that communities across Colorado are experiencing in obtaining Prop 123 monies?
Can you define what Prop 123 monies are, please?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Can we have Senator Kipp or Senator Basenecker define those?
Sure. If you'd like to go first, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Sure. So a Proposition 123 was passed a couple of years ago by our voters. And basically what it said is that we could have additional money, some of the money from above our revenue cap, to put into affordable housing projects throughout the state. So yeah, there are challenges with getting that money, but we also need to be very accountable with state money. We need to make sure that the projects that are being built are going to serve the people that are needed. And yes, of course, we're all interested in doing more with less, but we've also done a lot at the state level in making sure that we do things like tax credits for first-time home buyers and trying to make sure that people have the opportunity to get tax deductions, not just for their homestead exemption for seniors, but also for renters who are seniors. We want to try and make sure that everybody has the access to affordable housing in our communities, because nobody wants to have the problem of homelessness in their communities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kipp. I still am not quite sure what are Prop 123 monies. You answered the question, but I don't know what Prop 123 was.
Andy, would you like to respond to this question?
Sure. And so in part, what I'd like to just emphasize is that these are dollars that the local governments through a process can opt in to access, and there's certain requirements in place so that a local government could be eligible to receive Proposition 123 monies, and then sort of some accountability from the state. But I think, to that point, I think one of the continued challenges, or at least obligations of any state program, is to ensure that there's adequate and continued technical assistance available from the state so that local governments feel supported in their ability to draw down those dollars. I would say one of the primary challenges, quite frankly, is there is not enough money, even through Prop 123, to address our state's affordable housing crisis. It is certainly a valuable tool, one that I hope local governments utilize to the benefits of their community. I think Proposition 123 gives good guardrails around that. I was deeply supportive of it, but we need to do more. And I think one of the things in particular that I love about Prop 123 is the tenant equity vehicle that is included inside of it, meaning a renter is able to build equity while they rent through that investment to be able to hopefully purchase a home if that's their desire.
Thank you. Lori, would you like to comment on what you understand it to be? And you don't have to, of
I'm
course.
curious who in the audience understands what Prop 123. There might be one person. There you go. Thank you. So obviously, I'd like to learn more about Prop 123. What I'm understanding is it's state money set aside for communities and to be able to offer to affordable housing. Obviously, I think my comment is that there needs to be a lot more education for the general public and for communities probably in accessing Prop 123 if it's something that they can access for grant program to support affordable housing. That's all I'm going to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Will, do you have any comments on this?
Sure. I'm not aware of specific successes or problems folks are having accessing Prop 123 monies. So I'd be really curious to hear what those problems are. I would advocate for those monies to be as accessible as possible, but in a fair way and in a way that ensures that affordable housing that comes about from those funds is required to stay affordable housing. And it doesn't just be affordable the first time it's purchased and then it's sold and it's no longer affordable housing. That's a problem that we have sometimes. And another thing is, big developers will come in and they'll build a project and they'll tout it as affordable housing because it's got 5 affordable houses in it and the whole rest of it isn't. So those kinds of things we do need protections from. We need to make sure that everything we do, ensures equity, not just equality. Equality is everybody has a place to park. Equity is, there's a place up front for the folks who can't walk very far. And we have to make sure that that's something that we build into everything and every policy and every funding that we do as a state.
Thank you. Yara, do you have any comments on what you understand this to be?
Sure. Yeah, as a department head for in local government overseeing the assessor's office, I do know accessing state dollars sometimes can be difficult, and that is because we need to be accountable for those dollars. And so there's a balance there, and it's a tough one to hit, but we want to make sure that folks can access these funds while we're also being accountable. I agree with Rep. Basenecker that we need to offer more technical assistance, and maybe we haven't quite found that balance just yet. I do think, affordable housing clearly is a big issue. We've had a couple questions on it. And in my world in property taxes, I listen to members of the public every single day who are struggling to stay in their home because of rising property taxes. And as my role as deputy assessor, I have to value at market, but hopefully as a state legislator, I can make this a more equitable system so that folks on fixed income can have a break while folks who are maybe out-of-state corporate owners can pay in a bit more.
Thank you. And Steve, would you like to comment on this?
Sure. So I think we have to be careful about how much state money is flowing into these things, because you're just giving money from one person to another. We got to make sure the money isn't benefiting a developer. So what's important here is whether the properties are deed restricted. I think Will kind of spoke to that, so that when the property becomes affordable, that's a special designation and it needs to remain affordable for a long period of time and doesn't just benefit that person when they then sell at the market rate at some point. So having proper deed restrictions on these properties, I think, is important, and it kind of needs to be tied to the employment opportunities. That, in my mind, is why we're building affordable housing, so that we can have our a managed, diverse workforce that supplies all different levels that are needed.
Phoebe.
Well, the first thought that comes to my mind is, where did the state come up with the money and what did the voters vote for? I'm concerned that it's using Tabor monies. Do you know that Tabor monies are our citizens' way of making sure that the government is coming to us, asking us what we want done with money? Whatever they do to keep the, how do you call it, the cost of what they're doing down, that's the money we get once a year. Those checks for $800, whatever, that needs to be held accountable. And I get frustrated too, because a lot of the people that vote, the title board doesn't truly inform the people what they're voting for. So, you know, again, what is Proposition 123, and where did the money come from? Did that take from, you know, from us? Did people know that that's where the money came from? Thank you.
Thank you all for those courageous responses on something that's a little bit vague, I guess, for many of us. The next question has to do with gun safety. And I'd like to start with Steve on this question. Please explain whether or not you believe additional gun safety laws and funding is needed in Colorado, and which proposition KKK would provide. I've got to read that question again. Please explain whether or not you believe additional gun safety laws and funding are needed in Colorado, and apparently Proposition KKK would provide this.
I'm not familiar with Proposition KKK, but in general, with the Center Party and my own beliefs, I think Colorado is already doing pretty good with our gun safety regulations. We've added better background checks, waiting periods, and so I'm in agreement with those. And I think the most important thing that we need to do is get our red flag laws to working correctly and better to keep our citizens safe. Most of the shooters in these mass shootings were known to the FBI or police as problems that need to be kept an eye on. We need to take action. The red flag laws are the mechanism to do that. And even if it's just social media posts that these people are making about crazy things, wanting to kill people, we should take action and take those guns away. That's what we need to focus on, are the red flag laws.
Yara.
Gun violence is the #1 killer of kids. And I get emotional about this topic as a parent with 3 little kids in school, because you can tell when there's been a mass shooting. You can see the parents that drop off with tears in their eyes. And I'm having discussions with parents about which bulletproof backpack is best. That's not normal. So to act like what we have working right now is going okay is crazy. This is not normal. I would support an assault weapons ban. I think that we're at the point now when this is the #1 killer of our kids that we should ask, maybe it's the guns. And I think that needs to be carefully worded, and it needs to be enforceable. And there are experts in this field. I look forward to working with them to making that a thoughtful piece of legislation. But to answer the second part of that question, I do support Proposition KK that would, I believe it's a tax on ammunition, and it provides mental health funding. I do support that.
Thank you. Andy?
Thank you. This is a space that I've worked on closely since my time in the legislature. I've been proud to be the sponsor of a bill that banned ghost guns in the state of Colorado. If you notice nationally, the largest manufacturer of ghost guns has gone out of business, and certainly unregistered and unserialized firearms have no place in our society, regardless of whether or not we agree on the ability to build guns in the first place. I've also passed a bill mandating firearm dealer licensing, because at the end of the day, we still have firearm dealers in the state of Colorado that will sell you the components for a large capacity magazine. And I think compliance with the law is the bare minimum that we can expect of any business in our state. And if you cannot comply with the law, specifically in an area where the public could be endangered, you should not be doing business in the state of Colorado. I do support an assault weapons ban. I wrote the original ban 2 years ago that made its way to the House floor. And at the end of the day, I also think it is critical that we focus on the lost everyday iterations of gun violence. Folks who we have lost to suicide or self-harm, we need to remember that there are things we can do in that policy space as well.
Thank you. Lori?
I was in the first years of my teaching when Columbine happened. And since then, we've done lots of drills and learned a lot. I don't think that there's a need for additional gun safety laws. Colorado already has plenty of gun safety laws, and they don't make a difference. It isn't the guns. It is mental health. It is the people. At one of the schools that I recently retired from, we did a hunter safety class for 4th and 5th graders. It was optional after school. There was a wait list. We could take 25 kids. There was a wait list of 50 every year. The kids in that class learned the value of life. They learned how to safely handle a firearm. They learned how to approach hunting and using firearms safely. They learned the value of life. What we have is a mental health crisis in our state and the U.S. People don't value life. We need to address the underlying mental health concerns. It's not the guns.
Will, your turn.
We do need to address mental health, as I've said a couple of different times tonight, and red flag laws relate to that. You know, when someone's having a mental health crisis, it's not a good time for them to have a gun in their hands. You know, I have a bunch of my employees were involved in an active shooter incident several years ago in Denver, and they were all very shaken by it. Fortunately, they all walked away. Not everybody did from that building. But the fact that my granddaughter's having to go through active shooter drills and when she goes to school is like Yara said, it's crazy. I'm a hunter. I'm a gun owner. I don't think we should go take away everybody's guns, but it doesn't make me feel any safer at all that, you know, people have assault weapons. You know, big money has influenced, the big gun lobby has influenced our policy around guns, just like big money influences our policies around so many other issues, and prevents us from even having really honest discussions about that issue. And we need to have those honest discussions.
Thank you. Kathy, your thoughts, please.
Thank you. And I guess I would have to strongly disagree that the gun laws that we've passed in Colorado don't make a difference, because they do make a huge difference. We've passed laws to make sure that people keep their guns away from their children and make sure that they're locked when they're in unattended vehicles, and which is the major source of stolen guns, which are used in crimes. So yes, I do think that gun violence prevention bills are incredibly important, and I believe we need more. We're not finished yet. There's more work to do. I do want to take a moment and explain what KK is. Proposition KK would be a 6.5% excise tax on firearms, ammunition, maybe something else in there. But anyways, what that money would be used for is for victim services, for mental health and veterans, and for veterans and youth, and for school safety. Incredibly important to have sustainable funding for these items.
Thank you. Phoebe, your thoughts, please.
My family's been gun owners since I married a police officer. My kids went to 4-H. They've lived around guns. They participated in gun shooting sports. They even know how to shoot a bow and arrow. They have gone hunting with their father. They respect life. Gun owners know the importance of life. What we have, again, is a mental health crisis. I would go back to the point too, that some of these people that are going to these school shootings, the parents knew about it. They knew about it? What? Families have a responsibility of paying attention to their children. Just because they have to go to work and hold down a job, which I have done, doesn't mean that they don't need to pay attention to their children. They need to know what their kids are doing, and they need to hold their kids accountable, just like I did mine. Thank you.
Thank you all for your responses. Now, this is a totally different subject. This has to do with news and access to news. Please explain what steps you would encourage the government, that means the state government and the state government primarily, to take to help preserve small local newspapers. I'd like to start with Will, please.
You know, I worked for a small local newspaper when I was in college as a proofreader, and I used to be a columnist for the Coloradoan here in town for years. I really appreciate the value of local news media. I'm not sure what role the state government has in trying to preserve those small businesses, but I know that in general, many small businesses in many industries, including the news industry, are targeted and run out of business by big national businesses, big multinational corporations. And that happens to dentists, it happens to newspapers, it happens to all kinds of mom and pop businesses on Main Street, because the money behind Wall Street, you know, the big businesses can afford to come in and take over. So anytime that we have an opportunity to uphold antitrust kinds of policies that prevent the big businesses from putting the little businesses out of business, I'm all for it.
Thank you. Laurie,
Can you please repeat the question?
please explain what steps you would do to encourage the government to take to help preserve small local newspapers. So it has to do with access to news, especially in small towns and rural areas.
Okay. I don't think the government has a role in that necessarily. I live in Eaton. Eaton has a small newspaper that covers about 7 municipalities in Weld County. I also subscribe to the North 40 News, which covers northern Larimer counties. They provide a product that consumers want. Their circulation is rather large because they cover local sports, local county issues, local environmental issues, school issues. They cover the local Rotary meetings. They're providing a product that people want through local advertising because people are reading that. I also noticed that Greeley Tribune about 10 years ago had about 100,000 people and a circulation of less than 14,000. That's a market-driven thing. They're not providing a product that people want. I subscribe to the Coloradoan online. They have a product that I want. I think it needs to be a market-driven thing, not a state government involvement thing.
Thank you. How about Yara? Could you respond to that, please?
Sure. Yeah, I think that we, all see the value, I hope, in our local papers. And I think that we love to have our local papers here. And the unfortunate truth is that there are giant corporate interests that have the ability to buy them out. And that is why this is becoming such a problem. And certainly not just in the newspaper and journalism industry, but for small businesses across the board, this is something that they are facing. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's a product that people like when you have 5 corporations with endless wealth that are able to come in and buy them out. And we've seen that happen. I do think that the state has some of a role that they can play in providing grants and really in advocating for strong antitrust laws and holding those big corporations accountable. I also think that labor unions do a great job of protecting small businesses.
Thank you. Steve.
I don't think government has any role in trying to support local newspapers or news. Spending money on that would be very inappropriate for the government. I'm much more concerned about censorship that the government has been involved in censoring free speech. That is a problem. I think when you look at the media outlets that on both the left and the right, neither are telling us the truth. Outlets on the right lie about January 6th. Outlets on the left lie about the Hunter Biden laptop and the testimony from Tony Bobulinski. Many of you maybe have never heard of who is Tony Bobulinski. You should know, but we get government censorship about a lot of these things. It's been known, it's proven that the FBI interfered with Facebook on the rights of people to have free speech.
Phoebe, your response, please.
I agree with Lori and Steve. I don't believe government has a role in developing local newspapers. However, I remember being, when I was younger, enjoying the Coloradoan, and then all of a sudden it was taken over by Gannett News, and no longer was the Coloradoan my kind of paper because it didn't carry local news. I am concerned about the big corporation and government commingling. I think there should be some way that the people at the local level seek out and purchase or support their local news in a better way. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy?
Thank you. Yeah, and there have been some really difficult stories lately in the news about how some of our rural communities are losing their papers, which are the heartbeat of their community. And, for whatever the reason, in one case, an individual came in and said, we need this and I'm going to rescue it and I'm going to make it happen. But maybe what we could do as a state to support these papers in these rural communities, which are teeny tiny, right? If maybe tax credits would be something. That's one of the few tools the state has to help economically drive things and incentivize things. But yeah, it's very difficult when you're talking about private enterprise. However, these are critical to our communities.
Thank you. And Landy?
Thanks for the question. I tend to agree that in this space, the government shouldn't be in the role of picking winners and losers when it comes to private business. And at the same time, I recognize the vitality of a small local journalism that provides to communities. And so I do think that one of the things that we can really address in terms of how to support papers is to really work on the workforce side of those things. Really looking and partnering with our public universities to see what pathways there are to journalism inside of our communities. Certainly CSU obviously is a point of pride for this community. I would say as well that I think part of what we can do to really support that industry, quite frankly, is live into our obligation as public servants. And what I mean by that is being responsible with our remarks, making sure that even when we disagree with a journalist, we're not demonizing the individual behind the story. I think that is a dangerous and all too common practice that we see playing out. Our journalists are there to do a job. Hopefully they are independent and they are fair. I speak with journalists all the time in my capacity. I've liked some interviews and I've not liked others. And at the same time, I believe our journalists are truly providing a vital service on behalf of the public.
Thank you. Thank you all for your responses to that question. This concludes the amount of time that we have for questions. Now, each of our candidates will be asked to take 1 minute for brief, pertinent closing remarks. And let's start with Andy, please.
I'll just say thank you so much for the opportunity to engage this evening. Certainly appreciative of the folks who took out time out of their day or their evening to attend in person, those that'll watch online tonight or later. This is a really valuable opportunity, I think, for candidates, but more importantly, the public to understand the values that I think each of us could potentially bring to this office. I think we need more public discourse, more civic engagement, and the League really does stand as a model for how to make that happen. So I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to serve my community as your state representative, I would be honored to return to the state capitol to continue working on your behalf. We have so much good work to do, and we have so much good work to do together. And that is a value that I bring in front of me each and every day as I work on behalf of my community. So I thank you for your time. I certainly would appreciate your consideration. I'm always available for questions, for a meeting. I want to know what matters to you and your family, and I'd be always happy to connect and really listen to those concerns. Thank you again for a wonderful evening.
Lori.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters of Larimer County for offering this opportunity for us to speak with people tonight, here and online. I am running for House District 65. I've always been a public servant in our public schools in Larimer and Weld counties, and this would be an honor to continue serving in a capacity at the state level to bring some common sense policy to the state capitol. In my background, I've worked with a lot of people with a lot of diverse backgrounds. I'm looking forward to hearing more perspectives and learning more about how our state operates and how I can support the safety, the economy, and the education in our state. And even as I'm sitting here, there are comments from people on both sides of the aisle that I'm thinking, I'd like to talk to them more about that. I think that's important to listen to people and really reflect on how we can best serve our communities around us. Thank you so much. You can learn more about me at garciasanderforhouse.com. Thank you.
Will, your turn.
Thank you. Thanks, League. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. It's great to see this kind of engagement always. In my job, I spend 95% of my time listening and 5% of the time talking. So it's a little awkward being here doing all the talking. But it's been great to listen to other folks up here and to hear the questions. And it's always been great to talk to people out in the community on this campaign. I hope you kind of get the impression that I'm a person who's interested in equity. I have an open mind. I don't subscribe to any particular dogma. I do, use 3 words to consider policies. Follow the money. Who's behind this? Who stands to benefit? Who stands to really gain? Is this going to be an equitable improvement? Because that's what I'm about, is making a Colorado that works for everybody, not just the big moneyed interests, not just the people who have the loudest voice. You can learn more about me at willwalters.us. Thanks again. Bye.
Thank you. Yara.
Yeah, thank you so much to the League for giving us this opportunity to have a thoughtful exchange of ideas. My campaign is about supporting our most vulnerable community members, and I am here today running in the general election as a testament that people power can beat big money. I went up against an unprecedented amount of big corporate dollars in my primary, and I was able to overcome that by knocking a lot of doors, talking to everybody in our district, and with a lot of small dollar donations. I'll just leave you with this. Everything in our lives is a policy choice. The air that we breathe, the house that you live in, the amount of money you bring home to your family, these are policy decisions, and they can be tied to things that elected officials have decided. So we should make sure the folks that are making those decisions understand what it's like to be an everyday person in our community, understand what it's like to struggle, understand what it's like to be an immigrant, and to see the value in that. I'm proud to be endorsed by our local leaders and organizations and hope to earn your support as well. Thank you.
And Steve.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I would like to be the voice of the moderate majority. The center party is new. We bring something new to the table. Domination by the 2 major parties is a big problem. I ask all of you to think about supporting Proposition 131 for ranked choice voting. My role models in the legislature have been Steve Johnson and Joanne Ginal. I think they both have shown an ability to talk to people from all sides. And I think that's rare today. But I think as a center party member, I have a unique position to be able to talk to both sides and to listen to voters from both sides so that we can have more citizen input into this, so that voters and citizens don't feel like they're disenfranchised, having to be swung back and forth from this pendulum from one extreme to the other. So please consider supporting me for House District 52. Thank you.
Thank you. Phoebe.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters, and I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the number of people that have encouraged me and supported me in my efforts. What we're finding out is a lot of people are no longer voting. I'd ask that all of you go out and encourage your neighbors to please go and vote. I disagree with Steve on the Proposition 131. Without the party system, even unaffiliates won't have a network to pull together the people that they need in order to run for office. That will allow only millionaires to pay to play. So I would urge you not to support Proposition 131. I would also ask that if you care about, if you want less taxes, you want to protect our kids, our parental rights, our property rights, our water rights, our gun rights, and the sanctity of life, I ask for your vote. Please consider me at Phoebe for the number 4 Colorado@gmail.com. Thank you.
Kathy, your turn.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody for spending the last 2 hours of your life with it. You aren't going to get it back, so I hope you found it valuable. I also encourage you to engage more with all of us, because 1 minute is not enough to answer, frankly, any of these questions. I will say it has been an honor to serve on the local school board for 7 years and then in the State House for 6 years, and I hope to have the opportunity to continue serving. I do want to mention that we do listening sessions and town halls on a regular basis, so we can make sure we hear from the community. I also want to mention that we all talk to each other at the Capitol. Denver is not Washington. Democrats talk to Republicans. Republicans talk to Democrats. 90% of the bills that are passed have bipartisan support. We are not Washington, D.C. We are the Colorado legislature. I also want to mention that if you want to learn more about me or to find out how to contact me, KathyKipp.com. Kathy is with a C, Kipp is with a K. And my ballot guide will be coming out, I think, on Friday, so you can really find out what I think about all the ballot issues. Thank you.
Thank you all for those comments. We'd like to thank all the candidates for your participation, your willingness to run for public office, and your helpfulness in better understanding some issues. To the audience, we thank you for attending in an effort to become better informed voters. And thank you, Phoebe, for mentioning voting. I'm going to ask you to encourage everyone, encourage your neighbors, your friends, and so forth to vote. Ballots for this election will be mailed on October 11th and must be received by the county clerk's office by 7 p.m. on November 5th. The future of Larimer County and the state of Colorado are going to be influenced by the results. Local elections do matter. Voting is both a right and a responsibility as a citizen to uphold our constitutions and support the common good for our community. The video for this forum will be posted on the Fort Collins City website, fcgov.com/FCTV. The League of Women Voters website, lwv-larimercounty.org, and the voter information website, vote411.org, will also post links to the video. Vote 411 also provides voter information for these and other candidate races on your ballot, as well as ballot issues. So from the League and the City of Fort Collins, I'm Ann Thompson, bidding you a good night.